The last person to leave Grandma's funeral was the one who cared about her the least. Uncle Malcolm lingered by her casket, dabbing at dry eyes with a pristine handkerchief, putting on the performance of his life. My name is Elisa, and I watched him from the back pew of the church, my own tears long since dried. I'd done my real crying over the past 3 days, alone in Grandma's study, surrounded by the lavender scent she always wore and the leather-bound books she loved. "Quite a turnout," Vivian whispered, sliding into the seat beside me. As Grandma's assistant for 15 years, she knew better than anyone how few of these mourners actually visited when it mattered. Though some faces I haven't seen since last Christmas's attempted cash grab. I nodded, watching my cousins Freya and Kyler huddle with their father near the altar. Freya's designer black dress probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. They're not here for her. Of course not. Vivian's lips tightened. They're here for what comes next. The funeral director approached Malcolm, gently suggesting it was time to leave. Malcolm made a show of kissing his fingers and pressing them to the casket. "Goodbye, Mother. I'll make things right." The way he glanced at me when he said it made my skin crawl. Outside, the November wind whipped fallen leaves across the cemetery. Freya caught my arm as I headed toward my car. "Els," she said, using my childhood nickname like she hadn't frozen me out years ago. "We should talk about arrangements." "Everything's arranged," I replied. "Grandma made sure of that." "You know what I mean." Her perfectly manicured nails dug into my sleeve. "Dad's worried about some of the decisions made in her final months, when she wasn't herself." I pulled away. "She was herself until the end. You'd know that if you'd visited more than twice this year." "We were busy," Kyler chimed in, appearing at his sister's shoulder. "Unlike some people, we have actual careers to manage." "Right. Instagram influencing and day trading. Real heavy lifting." Freya's face hardened. "Don't be bitter just because you chose to play nurse instead of making something of yourself." "Ladies," Malcolm's voice cut through the tension. He approached with his wife Tessa trailing behind him. "This isn't the place. Elisa, we should meet tomorrow. Discuss the estate." "The lawyer will be in touch next week with the will reading," I said. "About that." Malcolm's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I've taken the liberty of hiring independent counsel to review any documents that might surface. Can't be too careful these days. So many elderly people fall prey to undue influence." The implication hung in the air like smoke. I felt Vivian step closer to my side. "Interesting," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Considering the only undue influence I've witnessed was you trying to get her to refinance her house last spring for your new business venture." Malcolm's smile tightened. "You've had your time to play granddaughter. It's time for the adults to clean up the mess." "The only mess here is the one you're about to make," Vivian said quietly. Malcolm turned his cold stare on her. "I'd be careful if I were you, Vivian. Loyal employees are wonderful, but they can be replaced, and their testimonies questioned." "Is that a threat?" I asked. "A reminder." He straightened his tie. "Family first, Elisa. Blood matters more than some old woman's confused decisions." "She was your mother," I said, my voice cracking. "And you were just the charity case she took in when your father, my dear brother, finally had enough sense to leave." He patted my cheek condescendingly. "Don't worry. We'll make sure you're provided for, modestly." They walked away, leaving me shaking with rage and grief. Vivian squeezed my shoulder. "They're going to come for everything," she warned. I watched my uncle's expensive car pull away, carrying my so-called family to whatever strategy session they had planned. Let them try. What they didn't know, what Grandma and I had spent months preparing for, was that they were walking straight into a trap of their own making. I touched the key in my pocket, the one to her study's locked drawer, and allowed myself a small smile. They have no idea what's coming. The study still smelled like her. I ran my fingers along the mahogany desk where Grandma and I had spent countless hours planning, documenting, preparing. The leather chair still held the indent of her small frame. "Everything's exactly where we left it," Vivian said, closing the door behind us. "The folder's in the bottom right drawer." My lawyer, Antonio, stood by the window, his usually cheerful face serious. "We should review everything before the official reading tomorrow. Malcolm's already filed preliminary paperwork to contest." "That was fast," I said, inserting the key into the drawer. "It's been less than 24 hours since we put her in the ground." "Greed moves quickly." Vivian's voice was bitter. "You should have seen how fast they descended when your grandfather died. Andrea was barely holding herself together, and Malcolm was already demanding access to accounts." The drawer opened with a soft click. Inside lay a thick red folder, its contents meticulously organized with colored tabs and sticky notes in Grandma's precise handwriting. "Show me," Antonio said, pulling up a chair. I spread the documents across the desk. Bank statements, photos, handwritten letters, audio recordings on USB drives, and most importantly, the will itself, along with its secret codicil. "They're going to lose their minds," I whispered, remembering the night we finalized everything. "Are you sure about this?" I'd asked Grandma 3 months ago, watching her sign the final papers with a steady hand. "Absolutely." Her voice was weak but determined. "Malcolm thinks I'm going senile. Let him. It'll make the surprise even sweeter when they realize I documented everything." She held up a photo of Malcolm signing her name on a loan document. Another showed Freya helping with online banking while Grandma was in the hospital. Bank statements highlighted suspicious transfers to Kyler's accounts. "They thought I was too tired to notice," Grandma had said, "too weak to fight back. But I saw everything, and now everyone else will too." Antonio's voice pulled me back to the present. "The will itself is straightforward. The house, investments, and majority of liquid assets go to you, Elisa. Small bequests to Malcolm, Freya, and Kyler, enough to avoid claims of complete disinheritance." "And the codicil?" Vivian asked. "That's our nuclear option." Antonio tapped the sealed envelope. "The moment they claim Andrea was mentally incompetent or under undue influence, this triggers. They lose everything, even those small bequests, and we launch a full investigation into their past financial dealings with her." My phone buzzed. A text from Freya. "Dad's lawyer says you manipulated her. We have proof. Back down now or this gets ugly." I showed it to Antonio, who smiled grimly. "They're bluffing. If they had proof, they wouldn't be threatening you privately." "How ugly should we expect this to get?" I asked. "Very. They'll claim you isolated her, manipulated her, maybe even accuse you of elder abuse. They'll paint themselves as concerned family members locked out by a scheming caretaker." "But we have proof that's a lie," Vivian interjected. "I watched them ignore her calls for years, saw them visit only when they needed money, heard Malcolm pressure her about her investments." "And I recorded everything," I added, holding up one of the USB drives. "Every guilt trip, every manipulation, every threat. Grandma knew exactly what she was doing." Another text buzzed. "Final warning, Els. Dad's prepared to destroy you in court. Think about your future." Antonio gathered the documents carefully. "Let them try. Every attack they make will just give us another opportunity to expose their true colors." I walked to Grandma's chair, running my hand along its worn leather arm. The last thing she said to me was, "Don't let them bully you into silence." "They won't," Vivian promised. "Andrea made sure of that." As if on cue, my phone rang. Malcolm's name flashed on the screen. "Don't answer," Antonio advised. "Let them sweat." I stared at the phone until it stopped ringing, then checked the voicemail. "Elisa, this is your last chance to handle this like family. I'm filing contest papers in the morning. Whatever you think you're going to get away with, think again. You have no idea what you're up against." I deleted the message and looked at Antonio. "When's the official reading?" "Tomorrow at 10. "Good." I touched the codicil's sealed envelope. Let's show them exactly what they're up against. The courtroom felt smaller than I expected. Malcolm sat with his lawyer at one table, Freya and Kyler behind him like perfectly styled backup dancers. Tessa completed their picture-perfect family tableau, dabbing occasionally at dry eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. "All rise," the bailiff called as Judge Harrison entered. Antonio squeezed my hand under our table. "Remember," he whispered, "let them talk themselves into a corner." Malcolm's lawyer, a shark in an expensive suit named Richard, opened with exactly the performance we'd anticipated. "Your Honor, this case is about protecting a beloved mother and grandmother from exploitation during her final months." He gestured dramatically toward me. "This young woman systematically isolated Andrea from her loving family, manipulating a vulnerable elderly woman for financial gain." I kept my face neutral, even as Freya shot me a smug look from across the aisle. "We'll prove that Andrea's mental state was compromised," Richard continued, "and that her supposed will was written under suspicious circumstances." Judge Harrison peered over her glasses. "Serious allegations. I assume you have evidence?" "We have multiple witnesses, Your Honor, including Mrs. Andrea's own children." Malcolm took the stand first, his performance worthy of an Oscar. "My mother changed in her final year," he said, voice thick with fake emotion. "She became paranoid, confused, would call me at odd hours, claiming people were stealing from her. When I tried to help, Elisa blocked my number." Antonio's notepad filled with quiet scratches. We'd anticipated every lie. "And the changes to her will?" Richard prompted. "Completely out of character. Mother always believed in equal family shares. This new will? It's not her. It's what Elisa wanted." During cross-examination, Antonio kept his questions simple. "When was the last time you visited your mother before she became ill?" Malcolm shifted. "I'm a busy man. A date, please." "Perhaps last Christmas? 10 months before her death. And how many loans did you request from her during that time?" "Objection." Richard stood. "Relevance?" "Goes to pattern of behavior, Your Honor," Antonio replied smoothly. "Overruled. Answer the question." Malcolm's facade cracked slightly. 2 or 3 business opportunities came up. 7 loan requests, Antonio corrected, totaling over $200,000. All denied. Is that when the visits stopped completely? Before Malcolm could respond, Richard called Freya to the stand. She'd traded her designer clothes for a modest black dress, her makeup perfectly suggesting recent tears. "Grandma and I were so close," she sniffled, "until Elisa poisoned her against us. Suddenly my calls went straight to voicemail. My texts were blocked." "Show them," I whispered to Antonio. He nodded, pulling out his tablet. "Ms. Freya," he said, standing, "I have your grandmother's phone records here. In the year before her death, you called exactly 4 times. Total duration of calls, 6 minutes. Would you like to revise your statement?" Freya's mask slipped. "I was busy with my social media career." "Your Honor," Antonio interrupted, "I'd like to submit Exhibit C, Ms. Freya's Instagram posts from the months in question, particularly the one where she's vacationing in Bali while her grandmother was hospitalized." The caption read, "Living my best life. Don't let toxic family drag you down. Share blessed incher boundaries. Shark self-care." Freya's face went white. Kyler's testimony was equally disastrous. He crumbled under questioning about suspicious bank transfers, eventually admitting he might have helped himself to Grandma's accounts while helping with her online banking. Finally, Richard called his last witness of the day. "We call Vivian Sutton." I straightened in my seat. This was their mistake. Vivian walked to the stand, calm and collected. Richard approached like a predator. "Ms. Sutton, as a paid employee, your loyalty was purchased, correct?" Vivian smiled slightly. "My loyalty was earned through 15 years of watching Andrea's family treat her like an ATM machine." "Objection!" "Sustained," Judge Harrison said, but I saw the interest in her eyes. Miss Sutton, Richard tried again, isn't it true you helped Elisa isolate Andrea from her family? No, Vivian replied simply. I helped Andrea document their exploitation. Would you like to see my records? Malcolm's face turned an interesting shade of purple. He leaned over to whisper urgently to Richard, who quickly said, No further questions. As court adjourned for the day, I caught Vivian's eye. She gave me the smallest nod. Tomorrow, we'd reveal the codicil. Tomorrow, they'd learn exactly how sharp Grandma's mind had been. And tomorrow, they'd realize their greed had walked them straight into her trap. They tried to bribe me, Vivian announced, bursting into Antonio's office that evening. Freya cornered me in the parking lot, offered $50,000 to revise my testimony. Antonio looked up sharply from the red folder we'd been reviewing. Tell me you got it recorded. Vivian pulled out her phone with a triumphant smile. Every word. The recording played Freya's silky voice. Look, we all know how this works. Help us prove Elisa manipulated Grandma, and we'll make sure you're taken care of. Better than any salary she's paying you. They're getting desperate, Antonio said, adding the recording to our evidence pile. Which means tomorrow's the perfect time to introduce the codicil. I closed my eyes, remembering the night Grandma had prepared it. Put this somewhere safe, she'd said, handing the red folder to Vivian. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes were clear and fierce. They will try to erase you. And me. Let's make sure they never do. She'd turned to me then. Elisa, promise me something. When they attack, and they will attack, don't let anger drive you. Let justice do its work. I promise, I'd whispered, holding her fragile hand. Good girl, she'd smiled. Because everything in this folder isn't just about punishment. It's about truth. A knock at Antonio's door snapped me back to the present. His secretary entered with a worried look. Mr. Malcolm is here. He's demanding to speak with Elisa. Antonio stood. Absolutely not. Let him in, I said quietly. Let's hear what he has to say. Malcolm stormed in. His expensive suit wrinkled, his face flushed. This ends now, he spat. Whatever game you're playing, it stops before tomorrow. The only game being played was yours, I replied, keeping my voice steady. For years. You ungrateful little... He caught himself, trying to smooth his features. Elisa, be reasonable. What do you want? Name your price. We can settle this privately. Like you tried to settle with Vivian. His eyes flickered to her, then back to me. That was Freya's mistake. I'm making a better offer. Split the estate equally. We'll drop the accusations. Everyone wins. Everyone except Grandma, I said. Everyone except justice. Justice? He laughed harshly. You want justice? How about I tell the court how you manipulated her into changing her will? How you played on her fears, her confusion? The only one confused here is you, Vivian interjected. If you think we don't have proof of every conversation, every threat, every attempt to access her accounts. Malcolm's face went pale. You're bluffing. Tomorrow, Antonio said firmly, you'll find out exactly what evidence Andrea left behind. Now, I suggest you leave before we add witness intimidation to the record. Malcolm straightened his tie, trying to regain composure. You have no idea what you're doing. This family stopped being my family the day you abandoned me, I cut in. The day you told Grandma I wasn't worth your time. Remember that conversation? Because she recorded it. He stepped back as if struck. She wouldn't. She did. She recorded everything. Every cruel word, every manipulation, every time you made Freya cry to get money, every time Kyler forged her signature. You're lying. Tomorrow, I said softly, the truth comes out, all of it. That's what terrifies you, isn't it? Not losing the money, losing the facade. He moved toward me, but Antonio stepped between us. We're done here. After Malcolm stormed out, Vivian touched my shoulder. Are you okay? I nodded, picking up the red folder. I am, but they won't be. Antonio began organizing tomorrow's exhibits. The codicil is our nuclear option. Once it's revealed, there's no going back. Are you sure you want to do this? I thought of Grandma's words. Let justice do its work. They chose this path, I said. Every demand, every threat, every lie in court, they chose this. Tomorrow they face the consequences. They'll never forgive you, Vivian warned. I looked at the folder containing years of evidence, proof of their cruelty and greed. Good, I replied, because I'll never forgive them either. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. Your Honor, we'd like to present new evidence, Antonio announced, holding up the sealed envelope. A codicil to Andrea's will, properly witnessed and notarized. Malcolm's lawyer jumped to his feet. Objection! This wasn't disclosed during discovery. Because it wasn't relevant until your clients claimed mental incompetence, Antonio replied smoothly. This codicil specifically addresses that claim. Judge Harrison studied both lawyers. I'll allow it. Proceed. Antonio handed copies to the court clerk. I watched Malcolm's face as he received his, saw the blood drain from it as he read the first page. For the record, Antonio continued, I'd like to call Dr. Sarah Peters, Andrea's physician of 20 years, who witnessed this document. A gray-haired woman in a crisp suit took the stand, radiating quiet authority. Dr. Peters, what was Andrea's mental state when she created this codicil? Completely lucid, Dr. Peters stated firmly. She understood exactly what she was doing and why. In fact, she specifically asked me to document her mental clarity that day. And why was that? She said her son had been suggesting she was slipping whenever she refused his financial demands. She wanted to ensure no one could challenge her decisions. Malcolm's lawyer stood. But surely at her age, Dr. Peters cut in, she was sharp enough to quote case law about testamentary capacity. She knew exactly what she was protecting herself against. Antonio nodded. Your Honor, we'd like to play Exhibit D. The courtroom screen flickered to life. Grandma appeared sitting in her study looking directly into the camera. The timestamp showed 3 months before her death. My name is Andrea, she began, her voice strong and clear. I'm recording this message because my son Malcolm, my granddaughter Freya, and my grandson Kyler have made it clear they intend to challenge my will. They've already begun spreading rumors about my mental decline. Rumors that conveniently started when I stopped funding their extravagant lifestyles. She held up a stack of papers. These are bank records showing unauthorized transfers from my accounts, forged signatures, emotional manipulation. Each incident is documented, dated, and witnessed. The camera panned to show Judge Roberts, now retired, sitting beside her. I have reviewed these documents, he stated, and find them compelling evidence of systematic financial exploitation. Grandma's voice continued. Therefore, I add this codicil. Should any beneficiary contest this will on grounds of mental incompetence or undue influence, they forfeit their entire inheritance. Furthermore, this will trigger a complete forensic audit of all financial interactions they've had with my estate over the past decade. I heard Kyler whisper, "Oh shit," behind me. Additionally, Grandma continued, her eyes blazing, all forfeited shares will go to establishing a foundation for elderly abuse prevention, because that's what this was, abuse, wrapped in family obligation and emotional blackmail. The recording ended. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. Judge Harrison cleared her throat. Given this evidence and the contestant's own testimony yesterday admitting to unauthorized account access, I have no choice but to enforce the codicil. Your Honor, Malcolm's lawyer sputtered, we withdraw the contest. Too late, Antonio said. The clause was triggered the moment you filed claiming mental incompetence. The audit begins immediately. Malcolm stood up, face contorted with rage. This is manipulation. You poisoned her against us. You're heartless, just like your damn Mr. Malcolm! Judge Harrison's gavel crashed down. One more word and I'll hold you in contempt. He subsided, shaking with fury. Freya was crying, mascara running down her cheeks. Kyler looked like he might throw up. "The will stands," Judge Harrison declared. "The codicil is enforced. All contested shares are forfeited to the Foundation. Court orders the audit to begin immediately. We're adjourned." In the chaos that followed, Freya caught my arm. Her designer outfit couldn't hide her desperation. "You ruined our family," she hissed. I met her eyes steadily. "You did that when you stopped treating her like one." As they fled the courtroom, I heard reporters outside already shouting questions. By tomorrow, everyone would know how the perfect Boyd family had exploited their elderly mother. Vivian hugged me tightly. "She would be so proud," she whispered. I touched the red folder one last time. "I know," I said. "That's all that matters." The trap had sprung perfectly, just as Grandma planned. "Local family's elder abuse scandal rocks social media," the headline screamed from my tablet. I scrolled through the morning news coverage, watching my family's carefully crafted image crumble in real time. "Your cousin's losing sponsors by the minute," Antonio said, setting a coffee on his desk in front of me. "Her authentic living brand isn't playing well with accusations of grandmother exploitation." My phone buzzed with a text from Vivienne. "Turn on Channel 4 now." I grabbed the remote and flicked on Antonio's office TV. Freya was doing damage control on a morning show, but it was going badly. "These accusations are completely false," she insisted, her practiced influencer smile cracking. My grandmother was confused. "But we have video evidence of her specifically addressing these claims," the host interrupted. "Are you saying that video was fabricated?" "No, but—" "And what about these bank records showing unauthorized transfers to your accounts?" "Those were gifts!" Freya's composure finally shattered. "She wanted to help my career. Elisa poisoned her against us because she was jealous of our success." The host's expression turned skeptical. "Success built on your grandmother's money?" Freya stood up, ripping off her microphone. "This interview is over." Antonio muted the TV. "That'll go viral by lunch." My phone rang. Kyler's number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "What do you want?" "Please," his voice cracked. "You have to stop this. My trading accounts are frozen. The audit team is going through everything. They're saying something about fraud charges." "That's what happens when you forge signatures on financial documents." "I'll lose my license. My career will be over." "Should have thought about that before you stole from Grandma." He started to cry. "What do you want from us? Money? Public apology? Name it." "I want exactly what's happening right now," I said quietly. "Justice." The line went dead. Antonio's secretary buzzed in. "Mr. Malcolm is here again, with his wife." "Send them in," I said before Antonio could object. Malcolm burst in, Tessa trailing behind him. His face was haggard, his usual polished appearance disheveled. "The audit team found everything," he said without preamble. "Every loan, every transfer, every forged document. They're talking to the DA." "I know." "You have to stop this," Tessa pleaded. "We'll lose everything. Our reputation, our standing in the community. Like I lost my father?" I stood up slowly. "Like Grandma lost her son, her grandchildren, her peace of mind?" "That was different," Malcolm protested weakly. "You're right. What you did was worse. You didn't just abandon us. You came back to exploit her, to steal from her, to gaslight her into thinking she was losing her mind when she caught you." "We can fix this," he insisted. "Whatever she left you, I'll double it, triple it." "With what money?" Antonio interjected. "The audit's already frozen your accounts." My phone buzzed again, a news alert. I read it aloud. "Influencer Freya Boyd's followers plummet amid elder abuse allegations. Major brands cut ties." Tessa started to cry. "This will destroy us socially. No one will invite us anywhere." "Karma," I said simply. Malcolm's face twisted with rage. "You vindictive little—" "Choose your next words carefully," Antonio warned. They might be quoted in tomorrow's headlines. Malcolm deflated suddenly, aging years before my eyes. Please, he whispered. We're still family. No, I replied. We stopped being family the day you told Grandma I wasn't worth your time. Remember, you said, she's just another mouth to feed, Mother. Let her go into the system where she belongs. Tessa gasped. I was 8 years old, I continued, and Grandma never forgot those words. Every birthday you missed, every Christmas you ignored, every time you only called asking for money, she documented it all. For me. For this moment. You've poisoned the rest of my life, Malcolm said hoarsely. You did that to yourself. I turned to Antonio. Please show them out, and make sure the audit team knows about the offshore account they're trying to hide. Malcolm's face went white. How did you— Grandma knew everything, I said. And now, finally, so does everyone else. After they left, Antonio looked at me. You okay? I nodded, watching another news alert pop up on my phone. The truth was still unfolding, and for the first time in years, I felt at peace. I'm perfect, I said. Absolutely perfect. The final hearing felt more like a public execution. The forensic accountant's presentation was devastating in its precision. Over the past decade, she explained to the court, we've documented systematic financial exploitation totaling approximately $1.2 million. She clicked through slides of bank statements and forged documents. Mr. Malcolm diverted funds through multiple shell companies. Ms. Freya used her grandmother's credit cards to fund her lifestyle brand. Mr. Kyler engaged in unauthorized day trading with estate funds. Judge Harrison's face grew sterner with each revelation. And the offshore accounts? 3 separate accounts in the Cayman Islands, the accountant confirmed, all funded with money traced back to Andrea's accounts. Malcolm slumped in his chair. Freya had stopped trying to maintain her camera-ready appearance, her designer clothes replaced by a plain black sweater. Kyler looked like he hadn't slept in days. Your Honor, their new lawyer attempted, my clients acknowledge poor judgment, but— Poor judgment, Judge Harrison interrupted. This goes well beyond poor judgment. This is calculated elder abuse and fraud. She picked up Andrea's personal journal, the final piece of evidence we'd saved for today. I'd like to read something into the record, she announced. Andrea's own words, dated 3 years ago. Malcolm came again today, demanding money for another investment scheme. When I refused, he threatened to have me declared incompetent. My own son, threatening to strip away my dignity because I wouldn't fund his lies. But I'm not afraid anymore. I'm documenting everything. For Elisa, for justice, for truth. I couldn't stop the tears then. Vivian squeezed my hand under the table. The judge continued. 2 years ago, Freya posted another luxury vacation photo while telling me she was too busy to visit. Kyler forged my signature again. I found the transfer notification. They think I'm a foolish old woman. They forget I raised them. I know their hearts now, and they are hollow. Freya started sobbing. Kyler wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. And finally, 6 months before her death, I've made my choice. The money goes to the only one who loved me for me, not my bank account. Elisa stayed. Elisa cared. Elisa showed me that family isn't about blood. It's about love. The others will be angry. Let them. Their greed will be their undoing. Judge Harrison closed the journal. I've been on this bench 20 years. I've seen many family disputes over money, but rarely have I seen such calculated, heartless exploitation of a parent. She straightened her papers. My ruling is as follows. The codicil stands. All contested shares are forfeited to the foundation. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. The audit evidence suggests multiple felony charges. Malcolm shot to his feet. You can't— Sit down, Mr. Malcolm, the judge snapped. Your mother gave you every chance to be better. You chose greed. Now you'll face the consequences. As the gallery erupted in whispers, I noticed reporters scribbling frantically. Tomorrow's headlines would destroy what was left of my family's reputation. Additionally, Judge Harrison continued, I'm issuing a restraining order. None of the contestants may contact Ms. Elisa or attempt to access any estate properties. But that's our family home, Tessa protested. No, I said quietly, finding my voice. It stopped being your home when you treated it like an ATM instead of a sanctuary. The judge nodded. Well said. Court is adjourned. Outside, reporters swarmed, but Antonio guided me through a side exit. In the parking lot, Malcolm was waiting. Happy now? He snarled. You've destroyed everything. No, I replied, suddenly tired of his drama. You destroyed everything. Every lie, every theft, every manipulation. Those were your choices. Grandma just made sure you couldn't hide from them anymore. I'm still your father. No. You're just the man who walked away. The man who tried to steal from his own mother. The man who's probably going to jail. His face crumpled. For a moment, I saw the father I'd once loved, before greed hollowed him out. I never meant, he started. Yes, you did, I cut him off. You meant every cruel word, every selfish action, and now everyone knows exactly who you are. I walked away, leaving him standing alone in the parking lot. Behind me, I heard him call out one last time. You've poisoned the rest of my life. I didn't turn around. You did that yourself, I whispered. You did that yourself. The autumn wind scattered leaves across Grandma's garden as I unlocked the front door. The house felt different now, lighter somehow, as if a long shadow had finally lifted. Just sign here, Antonio said, spreading the foundation paperwork across the kitchen table. The Andrea Johnston Foundation for Elder Justice. Has a nice ring to it. She would have loved the irony, Vivian commented, pouring coffee. Using their forfeited money to protect other seniors from exploitation. My phone buzzed. Another news alert. Malcolm had taken a plea deal. The photo showed him entering the courthouse, no longer the polished businessman, just a broken man in a cheap suit facing justice. Did you see Freya's public apology video? Vivian asked. I shook my head. Don't need to. Nothing she says can change what they did. The foundation's already getting calls, Antonio noted. Other families dealing with similar exploitation. Your grandmother's story resonated. I signed the final document, then walked to Grandma's study. Everything was exactly as she'd left it. The leather chair, the books, the lingering scent of lavender. The doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw a young woman on the porch, clutching a newspaper. Can I help you? I asked through the door. My name's Rachel, she said. I read about your case. My aunt, she's going through something similar with my cousins. I didn't know who to talk to. I opened the door. Her eyes were red from crying. Come in, I said. Tell me everything. Over coffee, Rachel's story poured out. Familiar patterns of manipulation, gaslighting, financial abuse. Vivian took notes while Antonio explained legal options. I was afraid no one would believe me, Rachel admitted. They're so good at making everything look perfect from the outside. I know exactly what you mean, I said. But you're not alone anymore. That's what this foundation is about, Vivian added. Breaking the silence, exposing the truth. Rachel wiped her eyes. Your grandmother, she must have been incredible. She was. I walked to the study, retrieving the final page of Grandma's codicil. Want to hear her last words to me? Rachel nodded. I unfolded the paper, the words as powerful now as the first time I read them. To Elisa, my defender, my witness, my true family. They tried to make you doubt your worth, to make you feel small and unwanted. But you stayed. You loved, you fought. May you never doubt your worth again, and may you help others find their strength, as you found yours. She knew, Vivian said softly. She knew this wouldn't end with just our case. Of course she did. I smiled. She was always 10 steps ahead. Rachel straightened in her chair. Will you help me? Help my aunt? That's exactly what this foundation is for, Antonio replied. We'll start with documentation, just like Andrea taught us. The doorbell rang again. Another visitor clutching a newspaper, then another, and another. By sunset, the kitchen was full of people sharing stories, finding strength in numbers, transforming pain into purpose. Look what you started, Vivian whispered, watching me comfort a tearful elderly man describing his son's betrayal. No, I corrected her. Look what Grandma started. She knew the truth would ripple outward. That's why she documented everything. Not just for revenge, for revolution. I touched the codicil one last time, then pinned it to the Foundation's new bulletin board. Below it, I added our mission statement. Because family isn't about blood. It's about love. It's about truth. And it's about justice. The room hummed with conversation, with hope, with the beginning of change. Somewhere, I knew Grandma was watching, satisfied that her final lesson was being learned. Sometimes the quietest voices speak the loudest truths. Sometimes the gentlest hearts fight the fiercest battles. And sometimes, justice comes not in a thunderclap, but in the steady revelation of truth. My phone buzzed one final time. Kyler, probably begging again. I declined the call without hesitation. They never saw me coming. But more importantly, they never saw what I'd become. Not just an heiress, not just a victor, but a catalyst for change. And they never would see what was coming next. Because Grandma taught me well, the best revenge isn't just winning, it's transforming the battlefield itself.